Good.
Flight attendants, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is an emergency webcast, a critical webcast about what's happening with our industry, with our jobs. I, as your international president, am charged with overseeing the overall issues dealing with our careers. Your specific MECs deal with the issues at your airlines, your negotiations, your daily operations. But from here in Washington, we do have all of our AFA staff interfacing with the government agencies that we work so closely with TSA, with FAA, DHS, DOT, and CBP. All of these agencies that are so critical to the functions of our work. And we have been very concerned about the government shutdown for flight attendant safety, flight attendant security, and flight attendant jobs. You may have seen that the system started to crumble on January 25th, and that did lead to a 3-week funding bill to try to get some pay to the federal workers who had not been paid in over a month, to try to stave off the worst of it. But during these 3 weeks, we've been stuck in an incredibly uncertain time. This is also concerning because we have real issues to deal with. We have staffing cuts like we've never seen before among our flight attendant ranks that deal with safety and security issues. We can't even get to those issues as long as the government is not operating. We can't get to the 18 critical safety and security initiatives that were in the FAA bill, including our 10 hours rest. These issues have not been implemented, and there's no way to implement them while the government is in shutdown or in this uncertain period of a potential continued shutdown to day 36 on February 16th. So there's concern about what we're not able to get to, which are all the things that everyone cares about and wants to make better in our work lives. But there's also the concerns about what is not happening in safety and security, and the treatment of the people who work in such an integral way to make our aviation system run. And what we saw on January 25th was that there were a few air traffic controllers who decided that they could no longer medically go to their job. They couldn't perform at the high medical requirement to be able to do their job. And so they will not run an unsafe system, and they said that they were not fit to report for duty. And what that caused then was a contracting of the airspace where aircraft could fly. And that meant that things were slowed down. That's what we're talking about in terms of cracks in the system and the entire system being grounded, which of course then, we've seen that movie before. Flight attendants lose jobs through furlough, and all of the economic impact of the industry not being able to collect the revenue that it's collecting. And of course, all the communities that we fly to here in the US and around the world would feel the impact as well. So we wanted to make sure that we could get together with you right away, because even though there was talk of a deal to stave off a continued shutdown, we would be at day 36 on February 16th, and the shutdown would continue. It's already been pushed to a breaking point, and we have very, very serious concerns about how that affects our safety and security and also all of our jobs. So that's why it was so important that we call you together tonight to really understand here what's at stake, to get a better understanding, have a conversation with you, and get the word out as quickly as possible. So I'm very happy to say that one of our union brothers is here tonight. He represents the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists, PASS, and this is 11,000 workers at the FAA who were affected by the shutdown and who do very critical safety work for us. So I'd like to welcome Mike Perrone to help to give us a little more information about what this has meant for our federal partners, and what this has meant for the critical safety work that they do and the stress that they've been under and how that affects flight attendants. So Mike, I really want to thank you so much for being here. And I think it's really important. You know, there were 800,000 federal workers who were either sent home or forced to come to work without pay. In either case, they were all not getting paid.
Right.
And your members are 11,000 of those 800,000. And the work that you do, often the American public doesn't see. Flight attendants may be generally aware of what you do, but we don't see it. So it would be really helpful if you could just describe what it is that your members do at the FAA for aviation safety.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here tonight. Excuse me. So we're the folks behind the scenes, as we always say. 11,000 federal employees that we represent, safety inspectors, and some of you folks realize, and the pilots realize when we're on board doing the safety inspections, right, flying with the airplanes, making sure that the regulatory side is taking care of the safety side. Everybody's following the rules. We also have the technicians who maintain all of the instruments that the air traffic controllers use and the pilots use, communications, automation, power. So it's critical to have all that work done right and certified right, so that when you fly from airport to airport, you're going to take off and land appropriately. We have folks that work in the aeronautical industry as far as the charts. So you fly using aeronautical charts. They're now digital. They used to be paper. Well, we've all moved into the digital world. We have our registry folks in Oklahoma City, in Maryland, in Silver Springs, Maryland, who do procedures. So all this is all a background behind the scenes that we past folks do maintain the safest air traffic system in the world. And you don't really hear of us. You hear, when you say FAA, you hear of controllers. When you're on the planes, I know you hear it's the pilots, and you know, you see the flight attendants, because when I fly on a plane, you folks are always there. But you don't see us. We're behind the scenes. But we were impacted very much. Our folks that I represent were impacted very much during this government shutdown.
So, okay, a couple other things I just want to clarify. So
Sure.
you also do certification of new aircraft. So aircraft can't get delivered unless it's got your sign off. Is that correct?
Correct. The industry has what they have designees. They have industries that they do the work per the regulations. But then we have our inspectors, our folks that have to certify and sign off on those procedures. And you just had one that couldn't fly from California to Honolulu because it wasn't signed off by the FAA, and there was others that were the same way. So that impacts the industry as well. You can't fly an airplane, that means people can't work because the plane sits on the ground. The registry department's the same way. We register the aircraft, so they can't sell a plane. If you can't sell a plane, nobody can get on the plane, nobody can fly. So it's an impact.
And that work was deemed non-essential, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that just wasn't happening during the
Yeah,
shutdown.
the FAA in 2013 changed their requirements to make that type of work for aviation safety inspectors deemed non-essential, which to me is crazy because they're aviation safety inspectors. They're in safety-related position, but the agency has determined that work to be non-essential. So they sat home for those 35 days.
So you're really in place to make sure that all the procedures are followed correctly to keep us safe.
Absolutely. We are a layer of safety that we all work to make sure and continue to have the safest system in the world.
Okay, thank you. So I just, if you could also talk about your members and the impact on them. I know some were determined non-essential, some were determined essential. What did that mean for your members?
So the problem is 11,000 folks, majority of them work, they had to work, they're by law required to work. And then you have the other folks that are required not to work. And it demoralizes the workforce. I got to go to work every day and not get paid for 35 days. Again, this is not the first time the government's shut down, so it's been through this. But you have that animosity between the folks that sitting at home want to work. There's nobody that didn't want to not work. And then you had the folks that had to work. So it causes a moral problem. It causes problems where people had to put decisions to make. Do I put gas in the car, drive to work? Right around the holidays was a terrible time. People had to decide whether they were going to buy toys for their kids or families. And so there was a lot of impact of working. Plus our folks, there's no time limit that we have to work and stop work. So some of those folks were working 14-hour days, 15, 16-hour days because somebody else couldn't make it in, whether it would be weather related or they were sick or some reason. So we had people working long days, which meant they also couldn't go out and get a part-time job to supplement the money they didn't have.
Okay, so I'm assuming you have more hardship stories than you have time here to tell.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we had one person, we're not sure, but committed suicide. Was that enough to push him over the top? I know there was a TSA agent that occurred. We've had people that hardships and causing family disruptions. And it's tough when money gets tight. That's one of the reasons people usually have the biggest fights. And children don't understand. Why can't mom and dad provide me with food or entertainment or whatever? They're just. But our folks are so dedicated, as your folks are, as the controllers, everybody. They want to work, and they want to come in and do the job.
Well, I really appreciate them doing that. I know that we all do. The last time there was a shutdown was 2013, and we've never seen a shutdown go this long.
Right.
More than twice as long as the longest shutdown. And how are your members feeling now that we're potentially facing a continued shutdown? What are they saying now?
Well, the biggest thing is, when they reopened the government, we had that 3-week stay. There was that back of their minds going, well, is it going to stay open? Is it not? So for 3 weeks they've been in that turmoil, and now it looks like, according to the last news, that the government may shut down again. So their minds are already starting to work. Now the equipment that they work on, the work that they do is highly technical. So they got to keep their minds focused on the equipment, on the procedures, and that's tough to do because we could be, as you said, day 36. And is there an end in sight? The longest government shutdown ever. Could this next one break that record? So our folks are, really want to do and keep their minds on the job. But at the same token, we're losing a lot of people to go into other jobs because they're just saying, you know what, it doesn't make sense to continue working for the government.
And how long does it take people to train for those technical jobs?
So, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. With the academy in Oklahoma City shut down, that means there's a time delay. Some of the folks in the aviation, the inspectors can go back to industry. So they came from industry. They're fortunate they can go back. But a lot of our other folks, the technicians, can go out and get jobs because they have related jobs, skills that they can take with them. But some of the folks don't. And so that could be a problem in going and trying to find a job. Some are close to retirement, so we believe we'll see a lot of retirements, which means a lot of corporate knowledge is going to leave, and that's unfortunate.
And and what I'm also hearing, though, that is concerning me as a flight attendant is that if your people leave in large numbers, we don't have people to do that work. And that can slow things down. I mean, we've already had aircraft that have not been delivered to several of our airlines during the shutdown. They've actually canceled routes because of that. We have members who actually had schedules and had those schedules backed out of their lines already. And so we've had a small portion of members who are feeling some of that financial pinch themselves. But if you have people leave in large numbers and people think that you shouldn't go work for the government because there's all this uncertainty, it's going to be hard to attract people to the job, we could have long-term effects here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's short-term, your people are going to retire, and then people always retire, but to leave and potentially mass, exit. But then the new people coming in are not going to have the benefit of me handing off my knowledge and experience. Just coming in cold could cause a problem, and then there may be situations where they may not feel comfortable in certifying equipment or certifying a procedure, and that'll delay an aircraft from taking off or for doing what they need to do. So that's the long-term effect that we're going to see.
Okay. So and what are you saying now to Congress about the 15th?
We did informational picketing day one, and our folks all over the country, and we're preparing for the 36th day. We're having our members make sure they got permits, making sure we're sending a message to Congress. We're telling our folks, not only our members, non-members, friends, family, anybody and everybody, contact Congress and let them know, do their job, get a bill, and move forward and let our folks, 800,000 federal employees, continue working and doing their job. That's our main message. Keep the government open, get them paid, let them all go back to what I'll say normal business.
This is not, safety and security is not a political issue. We shouldn't be put in the middle of a political fight here. So they need to have long-term funding for the FAA and the other critical agencies that support our work in aviation, and not put us in the middle of a political battle. We're not taking sides on some political battle here.
Right.
We're just saying we want to do our jobs.
Yep, and we're hoping that, I know there's some bills in Congress that will maybe take the FAA outside of this continuing resolutions and continuing bouncing back and forth to maybe get stable funding and move on. So yeah, but you're right. We don't support one side or the other. We just say, do your job, get a bill, get the funding there, and let's move on.
Okay, and you and I were in a meeting with aviation unions, so with ALPA, NATCA, the IAM, TWU, AFGE, talking about this a couple weeks ago, and talking about how we all need to work together to end this shutdown and this continued threat of the shutdown,
Right.
And how important that is. And this is really because everyone in that room understood the potential long-term harm here, the potential threat to our jobs. And the other thing that I remember about being in that room, and that I have felt this whole time, is that your members, my members, the pilots, the air traffic controllers, all of these people who work as safety professionals in aviation, this is a really hard thing to talk about and to say that we're less safe, because we have spent our whole careers, and we come to work every single day focusing first and foremost on safety.
Yep.
So
Right.
that is a really painful thing to say.
It is, and I've said it, a layer of safety is missing when we have these government shutdowns and not everybody is working. It takes away a layer of safety, and the longer it goes, the potential of something occurring just multiplies itself. Now, can I say tomorrow or the next day? But every time this continues to be a problem, there could be a potential. So you're right. We all said together as unions that we need to stick together. We had a meeting just the other day with the industry as well,
Yes.
just saying we all sign on to a letter, keep the government open. I think everybody gets it and everybody understands it. Industry wants to do it for money, for profit. We want to do it from the safety aspect. We want to make sure your family, my family, everybody's family gets on that plane, gets from point A to point B safely, arrives on time, and that's what we do. We do it for the safety of the flying public, and we want to continue that.
And that's our mission.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your efforts on that. And I just, we're going to continue talking here with our members and taking questions. And it's really important that everyone understands what's at stake. And finally, I just want to say that we're just really sorry that you've been put in the middle of this. And we want your members to know that everyone is really caring about them and thinking about them. And we're going to do everything that we can to ensure we're safe, ensure we're secure, and that includes making sure that your members have some certainty about when they come to work, they're going to get paid, and when they dedicate their lives to safety, we're going to make sure that they have security for their own families.
Well, I appreciate that. And I like to say, if everybody, excuse me, just contact Congress and tell them to do their job and pass a bill so everybody can continue doing what we do day in and day out. Make sure the system is safe, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.